Hi, so this is going to be a guide on how to build the C Class Deimos Battleship I was showing off in the shipbuilding guide I put on Reddit. Some people were asking to see how it was made so they could make it themselves, so this will show you that as well as give you some tips on how to actually build ships that are both effective and aesthetically pleasing. So for this build, this was all made using Deimos parts. You can find most of the Deimos parts at any ship tech in the United Colonies, as UC techs usually sell Deimos and Nova equipment. But this does also require special landing gear and the bridge that are only, and the large HABs that are only found at the headquarters. So here I am at the moon of Deimos, which is orbiting Mars if you haven't found it yet. And there's a star yard there. You just talk to this man here, ask to modify your ship, and you'll have access to all of the parts that you need. So, looking here, I'm probably just going to have to strip all of this down in order to show you how I start and eventually arrive at this. So the last thing that goes on to any ship build I do are the aesthetic parts. So I'm going to be removing all of these real quick. Okay, so the first thing I start off with when I'm doing a ship build is setting up the HABs. This is just because, as fun as it is building a pretty ship, you do have to actually use this thing. And it is not fun having a ship that you build to be this enormous vessel, and you have all these HABs stacked up on top of each other, but then when you actually go to use it, the actual walking paths that you use to navigate the ship are a nightmare. And pathfinding for characters and also where they place the doors is nonsensical and makes it a trek every time you want to actually like go to your cockpit, go to your room, go to the workshop, wherever. So the first step I do is I pick what HABs I want based on what interiors I want. And for those of you that have not seen, but I imagine most people here are from the actual guide, I do have a guide on Reddit where I photographed the interior of every single HAB and showed those off to you so you can pick which look you like the most. So for this one, the idea I had was, okay, there are certain HABs I know I want in the ship, and those are the workshop, the captain's quarters, the armory, and the infirmary. This is because the Deimos and also the Stroud workshop has every crafting table except for the cooking station and the pharmaceuticals. The infirmary over here does have pharmaceuticals, so that's taken care of. And then you can find the cooking quarters in living quarters, which I have a large one placed over here. So that covers all my crafting needs. The armory is just for personal aesthetics. I like having a wall of all the guns I've found, even the ones that I'm no longer using, but have certain, memories attached to them and stuff. When they give you a unique gun as a reward for a quest, and it's garbage, so I'm not going to use it, but at least I can remember it and be like, oh yeah, remember that thing I did, so it makes a nice display piece. And then captain quarters here, because having a bed to sleep in is super important to both heal and get that XP bonus so that you can level up faster. The other things I have here are a brig. This is one of the large 2x2s that you can only find at the HQs. I did it purely because this is a bounty hunter character I made. I've been doing a ton of bounty hunting, and even though tragically we cannot use the brigs for live capture, modders, I pray to you that you add this in at some point. I like having it there just for roleplay reasons. And then the living quarters, again, same thing. I like the idea of my crew having a space to be in. And then right here in the middle, we have an engineering bay. This is because I wanted a long central hallway, and I didn't want the landing bay at the back of the ship. I wanted it at the front for ease of access whenever I'm landed. So in order to have a long corridor, I needed a 3x1, and it was either this or living quarters. And I just like the aesthetic of the Type B engineering bay. It's a bit cleaner than the Type A. There's some workstations around. It feels like the guts of a ship that I would expect to be right here in the middle belly of it. What I've done back here is my personal solution to the awful door placement that people will constantly complain about in shipbuilding, because the door placement it appears to be quite literally random. I've done a lot of testing of placing down HABs, seeing where the doors are, and then adding a single extra HAB to see what happens. And sometimes you add an extra HAB and it will completely remove doors that were already there, just because it's like, oh, I know a better path. Instead of going in a straight line and having all these connection points actually work, why don't we have you go here, go over here, go through there, go upstairs, go down, and then just not have a door actually connecting these? Because why would you need that when you can instead take 4 different doors and a ladder to get where you need to go? The door placement is awful, and that's something that they really need to add in or fix sometime soon. But if you want to get around that for now, the answer that I have found are these one-way connectors. 2 companies sell them. Hopetech sells both horizontal ones like this and front-to-back ones like this. Nova also sells one, however, they only sell a horizontal one. The use of these is that they appear to force a door. So an issue that happens when building ships is you can add in these... Let me get rid of that. These companionways, which are typically it's just a hallway. This is a hub for doors, if you will. But even when you place it, let's say I placed a hub down like that. Logically, you would think, okay, there's going to be a door here, and there's going to be a door here. However, say I had it like that, sometimes the game will just go, no, I'm not going to put a door here, because I already saw that there's an existing pathway where you can go from here to here to here to here. And apparently the only thing the game checks for is whether a room is reachable, not if it's optimal. So as long as it finds a path to a room, it goes okay. And it has no incentive to add additional doors. So the issue being that these are rooms that the game is completely okay with having only one door. So it's just like a storage room, it treats it as. So you'll walk in here, there'll be no door right there sometimes. And it will just say, yeah, no, you wanted a side room. That's fine, even though the player is looking to make a hallway. These are dedicated hallways. I have never found a situation where it only has a door on one end. They always put a door on either side. So this is my method for forcing a pathway. So what I did is on this engineering bay, I added in the landing bay like so. I believe I had it like that, I think. We'll find out in a minute. And you go through here, and then you have a pathway leading over to the armory, pathway leading over to the workshop, pathway leading straight ahead to this companionway. The reason I have these companionways here is because the bridge I wanted to use for the battleship build is the large Deimos bridge, and that requires a door to be in the back of it. So let me... I did delete... Let me put you back as you were. Okay. So, I had to make this stack here of companionways. Luckily, it did make a nice ladder here for me, so that was very easy. And then going over to cockpits, you are looking for the Ares Bridge. Looks like I used the first one. like any ship part, you unlock more as you level up, but the only difference is how much cargo these have, and they go up in mass as well, so kind of helpful for the extra cargo. This build does run into the module limit, so not the worst thing in the world to get extra cargo from wherever you can, but I'll just be using the one I originally had here. And then once you have your kind of core setup done, where it's like, okay, I know I want these modules, I know I need the bridge to be up top on top of the ship. The reason for that is I really like seeing the guns on the bow tracking enemies. I just think it's cool looking, so that's, I mean, most of the reason we're building ships, right, is just to make cool looking stuff. So when I was setting this up, I was trying to figure out where these 2x2s should go. I decided to put them back here because I already needed to have this stuff in the back, because there was no room for a Type C reactor on the front of the ship just because of how huge they were, and I wanted it to be covered. I don't like the reactors poking out on my builds. So I ended up sticking it back here. So this makes a nice cube in the back once you fill in the gaps with these Deimos hull A's. Every manufacturer has a hull block. It's kind of just the one that you stick in to make a 1x1 HAB equivalent. Alright, so once you have your core HABs all set up, and you're like, okay, now we have to start adding in components. Another thing I did with this build is I wanted to, again, hide a lot of the modules inside. I wanted it to be functional, and, you know, even though it doesn't appear to have any gameplay impacts, I think it's weird to have all of your critical components on the outside of a ship rather than, you know, tucked away safely inside. So I tuck the shield generator in here, and then I tuck the grav drive right here. Like so. That way, once I fill in the rest of this with hull parts, you can't see them anymore. And then, same thing as before, we are going to take these, and for those that don't know, Control on a part and G in order to grab the bits. Okay. And then for this, we are also going to be putting on the landing bay right down here. Again, I believe I had that forward there because, again, this is for knowing how doors connect. Landing bay here, arrow right there, that means that's where the hatch is. And I didn't want it right in the middle because, again, that feels weird. There's nothing back here, so then there's just like a little chunk of hallway here behind you. So I put it like that. Okay. There we go. So, you know, I'm starting to fill things in now. The other things I knew is, you know, I like having my big engine bays right at the back of the ship. So I'm going to be adding those on. Well, honestly, usually when I'm building ship designs, I do the engines at the end because I want to see the outline of the back of the ship. So I'm going to treat this as if I don't know what this ship is going to look like. So we're just kind of filling bits in now with the hull. So once you have this all set up, it's like, okay, you know, that's spaceshipy looking. This is shaped well. So now we want to start filling in these other parts that are, you know, again, I don't like having that big exposed strut. That seems like the weak point on a ship. So why don't we cover that up? Yeah. Okay. So now that the shape is starting to take form, we can start thinking about the additions, which I'm going to move over here so you can see them better. The structural tab is just your source for all of your good little bits that are going to give your ship that unique manufacturer look. So with Deimos, you have a couple options. You've got the braking engines, which I happily report are animated. If you look at your ship in space and you hit the brakes, they actually do fire. Which is cool. They don't give you any extra engine power, but, you know, again, this is for aesthetics. And let me put this out. That is everything except for one specific usage in the structural tab. All of these items actually make your ship worse, unfortunately, because you'll notice they add mass, but they don't add health, unlike everything else. Like all the HABs, for instance, have a hull value, even though it's not a lot. So technically, building a ship out of HABs is more structurally sound than using the armor pits, which, again, I think is weird. I think they should give hull value. In fact, I think they should give extra hull value, because it's just a straight-up block of steel you're strapping on. But in the current version, this is how this works. So the things that we can put on the front bits here are stuff like this belly, which either can be an upward lip, or it's usually meant to, fix out a slope. So if you're connecting something to the bottom here, e.g., I could take it like this and add on a belly like that to kind of continue this slope here. Because looking at this, I decided I kind of liked this slope look. The reason being that a core Deimos structural bit are the wings. And these wings are the only functional part of structural tabs, not this specific piece. These wings all do it. The Horizon weapon mount does it, which can only be attached on the sides. But these are methods of attaching guns to a ship. Those circles that you see right there is a hull attach point. That square one is for guns. So as long as you see that, okay, I can stick guns onto this thing. So I personally like the look of when they're poking out a bit like this, rather than just like that. That gives a smooth look, but it kind of gives it this pointier, more aggressive military design that I'm going for. Gonna put some braking engines there, because, front of the ship, that's where a braking engine should go. And then the reason I liked this middle spine is it allowed me to double up on these. And I was able to add in an extra set here. Now, I think I had that like that, yeah, because then back here, you'll see these Deimos wings all connect together. They're meant to be used as like a set for different purposes. So they have all these bits here that essentially fit together into one uniform design. So I really like these fins, even though they are actually useless because they don't allow you to attach weapons to them. But again, I think they're neat. So aesthetic is king here. Up here, I believe I had it like this. Excellent. So you can already see this is starting to take shape. Don't worry about the color difference right now. That's because I copied all the hull pieces from the one in the back, and I had repainted this ship at the end. So these normally would be the same color, and then we'll do the painting bit right at the end, so I can just select all and do it. Okay. So there we go. So now we've got, you can already see how this is kind of forming together, and it's turning into a, again, very aesthetically pleasing design. Now, I believe I had to have it like this. You'll see right now that that is measuring 35 meters to the fore. They measure from the midline, so the ship isn't 35 meters. The ship is currently 70 meters, but the max size of a ship is 80 meters in total, or 40 in any direction. Again, this is measured from the middle, so as soon as you see that hit 40, you know you're at max. You can't go past that. And that is a limitation of the ship design once we throw in the engines as well. So the front here is looking pretty good, and I'm enjoying the aesthetic of that. So then we are going to turn our attention to the back, which, same thing. We are going to figure out how we want to fill space, because I think of my ships functionally, and I think that leads to good ship designs, is if you think of your ship as having mechanics that are actually in the game. Think of it like, how would I actually build a ship to be reasonable and functional and still a little bit pretty? So it doesn't make sense for me to have my HABs exposed. That's where people live. I don't want holes getting blasted directly into the place I sleep in. So covering it up is something I care about. Alright, so I want to cover the reactor, got to protect that, and then we're looking at the back of the ship here. So okay, we want probably some more fins again. Fins are good. Fins are lovely. And then looking at that, I'm thinking, okay, I think we could do some more back thrusters. I think that would look pretty good back here. maybe even if we have them like that. Yeah. Something like that. And I kind of like that design there where these are looking forward. You'll also notice on the Deimos stuff, they have like little headlights on these, which, you know, of course, absurd having headlights on a battleship like this in space, but hey, whatever. Nice little touch, guys. And then we are doing the same design I like, where it is the fin in the middle, and then you can hit the left or right arrow to change variance to the back, because flipping it with Z is just left or right. The variance for a lot of these aesthetic parts are left or right like that. Alright, but looking at this, if I remember correctly, well, actually, there's a very easy way I can check what the exact ship design was. I can just cancel this and look back at what we had. Okay, yeah, so I had the front correct. You know, you've got 4 hull pieces here and a back engine. Back engine's down here. These only reach up to here. Aesthetically, I would prefer to have them like that, but as you can see, the length goes to 43 meters if I do that, just because that little bit is pushing out ahead of the thruster. So that's something to keep in mind too when looking at aesthetic parts and you're trying to maximize your ship size, is some bits are just too long. Like that's 41 meters. 1 meter too long. But if you use this bit, that's 40. Just because it's slightly shorter. So play around with your bits and see how they actually affect the length, because you might find something fits that you wouldn't think normally would. Alright, so I'm going to remove all the bits that we hadn't attached yet so you guys can still follow along with the build from where we were. Okay, so when we left off, it was like this. Still have a few more bits to chop off. Okay, yeah, so this is how we left it before. Another piece just to remember here is that docking hatch. These slim docking hatches, I'm pretty sure every manufacturer offers them because it's kind of a standard format with them, where they either have the block docking hatch, which is like a HAB-sized one. Unfortunately, it does not have side doors. No, those are normal hull attach points. They're not the arrows like you'll see on the HAB there that indicate a door can spawn. Instead, they're only on bottom. So it's effectively the exact same thing as this, except it uses a lot more space. I think the main purpose of that is just to make it reach higher in case you have things on your ship that are blocking the docking hatch. Because if you don't know, the docking hatch has to be the highest point on the ship. That way when you dock with things, there aren't bits above it that smash into whatever you're attaching to. Luckily, it's pretty generous because the docking point is that glowing ring above it, not the hatch itself. So even though this bridge is technically higher, this still counts. And in fact, I could put other things on here. Not that big, that's a full block, but there are half block items, like I'm pretty sure I could fit a spine on here. No problem. Yeah, see, like a radiator or something like that is fine because it's below that ring. So, the other thing that changed with this is I had full blocks there when I was building. I forgot that I actually used these sloped ones here. Again, honestly, that's an aesthetic choice. If you guys wanted to do it like this instead, it blocks more of the interior components, and I think it looks perfectly fine. But for my build, I did do the sloped ones there. And then I, of course, have those right there. So, going forward, next we want to start decorating back here, because now we have a nice shape to the back of the battleship as well. I have all the back thrusters. Honestly, maybe a little bit too many back thrusters, but there was nothing else I could put on the front here that I thought looked reasonable. But, you know, some other front caps are... You can always put on the belly, which tilts up, or the cowling, which tilts down, but again, unfortunately, these ones are too big for that front piece. You could put them down here. However, I kind of like the symmetry of having the two on the sides, and this is the only bit that fit here. So that's why I decided to go for that one. Now for back here, same thing as before. We're doing the wings because they are pretty, and we like pretty things. Oh my, yeah, so this is something I wanted to talk about too. People were asking what the attach points mean. So when I'm saying attaching an object to make a door spawn, what we were finding, and this is probably the least tested one, but this was just an observation that my girlfriend made when she was playing, and I need to run it more, but it seems to work, which is if you hit attach, which notice if I'm over here, the bottom right, it says add. If I select a door, like that one, like I mouse over it, you'll see now that it says attach instead. So if you hit G, it will only show objects that can attach onto that point. So nothing that attaches on top, only things that attach to the side. And then if you select a HAB, like so, this theoretically creates a door at the spot that you hit attach. Now this is difficult because sometimes they don't orient the way you want. Like right here, I hit attach on that door and it chose to do it this way. What if I wanted to attach it at the door, but I wanted it to extend that way? I don't know. But if it does work, you know, it's something worth trying. But overall, the most reliable way I know of is utilizing those one-way connectors down there. Okay, so copy that, paste that. Actually, I should just be copying those anyways. Doing it like that, doing it like that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I had it like that, I think. Again, we'll double check at the end to make sure everything is set up properly, but I believe, because I usually like having these covering the engines a little bit. So, okay, now we've got this really sharp and aggressive design for the ship. It's shaped like a traditional battleship with the bridge more backset. Now as backset I would like, but just due to the size limitation of those huge Class C reactors, like the only other way I could do this is to move the HAB tower here back and then make it one taller so that I could tuck the reactor underneath here. And then I could put the shield on top of the grav drive because it has a top mount point. That would technically work, but I decided I liked having the bridge closer down to the deck here. It gave me, again, a better view of those guns swiveling around, which I think is cool. So then looking at the back here, okay, we are going to need some engines. So this reactor, unfortunately, does not have a back mount point, but that's fine because we have this top cowling here that I want to deal with because I don't like leaving them as just like a big flat block. So we are going to use that one, that down cowling there, to bring that slope down, and then that gives us a bottom mounting point. Excellent. So then what we can do here is, I believe on my previous build, I had tucked cowling as well as a fuel tank back here. But before we hit that, something I really want to take care of here is the bottom of the ship. Now, up here, there's a lot more definition going on, especially when we start adding the spines back here in these big flat areas. But on the bottom here, it's pretty flat. It's basically a plane. So I want to add some definition here, mix up the outline a little bit to make it look a little bit more complicated, and that will allow you to have a, at least in my mind, better visual experience with your ship because it's got a little bit more going on. So I like the shape of the Deimos lander here, so I am continuing it because Deimos bits fit together just like all the manufacturers, and they like to maintain their kind of outline. So Deimos really likes this, I don't know what to describe this shape as, but I guess it's technically just like an octagon. Yeah? Three there, one on top, one on bottom. Yeah, it's a weird pancaked octagon shape. But we can continue that back here. So again, it looks like it's one big piece. And then we have these spaces over to the side. And naturally we need landing gear. So you can do the side landing gear, but it's going to take more just because of the weight of this ship. It's already getting up there in mass. Luckily, if you go to the Deimos HQ or any headquarters for a manufacturer, you'll find that they usually sell a nicer version of the landing gear. For instance, they have these bottom-mounted ones they sell here that have 3 landing thrust, which is better than their side-mounted ones they typically have. So we're going to need about 4 of these. So I'm going to put them like that because I want to leave room for one more bottom mount because they have this whole set of, I believe they're called skegs that they have down here. Yeah, skegs. So you see they've got a front one here. They've got little landing lights, which are, again, very cute aesthetically. And then we're going to throw on these normal skegs that go in the middle. And we're just going to run those down. Going to copy you, flip you around like that. So now you see we have that continuous big line. It's got the landing gear at the front and back, which again, reasonable for weight distribution. And then these little landing lights that I think look good. I am going to move these once the engines are in, but I just wanted to show you the general shape that we're going for here. Because this is not just about how to build this specific ship, it's building ships in general and how to use the different manufacturers' aesthetics to your advantage. Their bits fit together. It's just about knowing where you want to put them so that they, make sense to you. All right. So then looking at this, we are starting to look really good here. And the back has started to get taken care of. So then at this point, it's like, okay, I need engines. Now, I like having my engines kind of tucked into a hole. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to attach a belly here. And a belly here. Like that. And then I'm going to start attaching on our first engines. Now, a important thing with module choice is this is where you can get kind of real picky with your aesthetics. So you can repaint certain modules, but not others. Notably, shield generators, Actually, you can. Oh, you can paint reactors. Oh, that's cute. Okay, good. So you can paint that. You can paint. Okay, I thought you couldn't paint shield generators. Okay, so it's just weapons then, which is really annoying. Because, they're the things that are always on the outside of your ship and visible, and you can't repaint them. So if you're going for a Nova build, congrats, dude. You have every gun that you can imagine that is all white. But if you're going for a gray color scheme like this, you're a lot more limited. I picked these engines for 2 reasons. One, they by default match the color aesthetic of Deimos, and that's fantastic. The other reason being that these engines are incredible. You'll see here engine thrust at 17,000 and maneuvering thrust at 48. So that's amazing considering that they're Class Bs. With 4 of these, which is the max you can have because modules are determined by their max power, you'll see over there underneath the class, max power 3. You can only go up to a max of 12 on the power meter up top, where you see I've, because I removed them, it's marking it in red, but as soon as I add more, fills up all the way. If I add another one, then it's going to give you the, oh, I can't because they're not sold here. That's right, I can only have the ones I already removed. But you can't go above your power limit. It will give you an error saying, oh, this is unavailable to you. You've put too much power into engines or too much power into guns, something like that. All right. So now looking at this, okay. I wanted to have them a little stacked like this, a little slope, because, again, I don't want it to just be a boring horizontal there. This ship has a kind of curve to it along the whole thing, so it's more like a it's more like a traditional, boat. It's kind of a bowed shape with the lowermost part being right here in the middle, and then it kind of swings up to the side. So I wanted to maintain that silhouette on the back as well. All right, so then looking at this, all right, same thing as before. I want to fill in these spots. I don't want it to end on just the hard end of a Deimos hull. I want it to have the nice slope as if everything kind of pinches together at the end. So then down here, I'm going to place a fuel tank, because these ones, again, they match that nice brass that you have on all of the Deimos parts. The brass bars there, the brass fins on those, as well as the brass, there are cargo containers from one brand that match that as well. So I like having this kind of uniform, like brass is the metal choice for this ship, for a singular color scheme. And it just so happens this Dog Star reactor, exact same thing. Also, this is made by Ballistic Solutions. They make a lot of the modules that fit the Deimos aesthetic. I'm not sure if they're tied together lore-wise, but it feels like they're built to be, paired. So with this now, you could stack another grouping of those fuel containers on top if you felt like it. I don't, just because I haven't really run into a situation where I need that, so I'm just gonna slap that on top of it. And then I'm more okay with this ending here, because at least this feels a bit more like it's starting to taper off, and I like that. Also, you'll notice we can't really go any farther than this, because this, once you add the engines in, is when you hit that 40-foot limit. Alright, so then looking at these, same thing. I'm going to bring these down like that. No, I'm pretty sure I had them like that. Yeah, that seems more like something I'd do. And then looking at my ship now, I'm noticing, okay, we got a lot of flat area up here, and Deimos blesses us with these cool spine items, so I want to use them. So attaching up here, we're going to use the front spine, because it starts the slope, and then we're going to continue that into a normal one, just so that it doesn't hard transition. And then back here, why don't we throw in one of those, another one, and then I want to have it pick up into a slope, which you can either do that one for a smoother slope, or this one, which is technically made for a mounting point for a weapon. Or actually, no, that's a normal hull point up there. But I kind of like those little holes there, and that hard transition. It makes it look like almost an air intake, which is, again, absurd on a spaceship. But this is a combination of practicality and rule of cool, of what looks neat. And I think that gives a very neat aesthetic. In fact, looking at this, I'm curious. I felt like I might have mimicked that. This is hard for me to remember, because I've gone through this build hundreds of times modifying it, because you hit a point where you are right on the edge of the build limit, and you just keep shuffling things around to see what you can get working. So up top here, this is a nice side mounting point, and I didn't want to have two spines right next to each other because I thought it would diminish the kind of visual impact of them. So I used this as my cargo container spot. And these are the Sextant Shield Systems ballast cargos that, again, they mask the brass perfectly. So I get to just leave them as is. Stick those on like that. Perfect. Okay, so, we've taken care of all the core bits here. We've got HABs to live in, cockpit, docker, landing gear, landing bay, fuel tanks, engines. Everything is looking good. So all we're missing at this point is, some final touches, some coloring, and most importantly, guns. So part of my battleship build is I wanted to have a big boat covered in turrets, because to me, all forward firing guns is more reminiscent of a fighter, less so of a cruiser or larger ship, where they're not built for mobility or turning, they're built for just being a weapons platform. And once you go into Type B, and especially Type C guns, you start getting a lot of turrets, which turrets are, anything that faces sideways when you look at it, and it will have the word turret in the name. The other thing with this build is I went for a lot of particle beams, just because their DPS is comparable to a lot of the laser or ballistic weapons, but are equal across both damage types. So skill point wise, it seemed pretty efficient just to put all your points into a combination of particle weapons and automated weapons, because turrets get bonuses from both if they're particle beam turrets. And then you can boost that even further by having one of the either Andrea or what's his name, Bertram, the 2 Constellation members that both have level 3 particle beams, which do stack with you, by the way. Crew member skills do stack with the players. They don't stack with each other, but if you have at least one of them on your ship, that means that you're getting whatever yours is plus their bonus to damage. So these things can get absurd DPS. So for these ones, these Ballistic Solutions PBO auto turret alphas are fantastic. 29 damage per shot and a fire rate of 4, max power of 3, so you can have 4 of them. And range of 3,000. So these things are straight cannons. And as such, I like having them forward facing, so that we can have a good forward salvo for dealing with enemies. Because even though I want side coverage, I acknowledge most of my targets are in front of me, and I want to kill them quickly. So I arranged it like this, again because of my love of made-up practicality that doesn't have game mechanics backing it up, where I thought about having them like this. I didn't like that they would be shooting through each other, even though they absolutely can. If you want to do it for efficiency stuff, you can absolutely stack guns right on top of each other. They don't hit each other. The bullets will go right through your own hull. It's fine, but again, this is built for prettiness instead of just raw min-maxing. Because if it was raw min-maxing, I wouldn't have a single hull piece on here. It would be bare bones, HABs, guns, shields, all that stuff as tightly packed as possible for a smaller target, and also a lot less mass so I could be quicker. Oh, that is another point I want to bring in with these. You can use Type C engines. Note, the top speed of your ship is determined by engine type. Type A's mean 150, Type B's mean 140, Type C's mean 130. So if I went to Type C, I could get better mobility, but I also would get worse top speed. So you don't really care about that too much. And these are fantastic. Note, you do need starship design, and they only start appearing again at a higher level and in certain locations. I've been finding these at Akila, which is again weird because they match the Deimos aesthetic so well, but you find these in Freestar space. So head out to Akila if you want to pick up some of these Slaytons, and if you don't see them there, it probably just means you're not high enough level. For reference, right now I'm 35, but these are the third variant of these. The first ones, I want to say, started spawning sometime in my 20s there. But you will need starship design for these. So, same thing for these. These also require starship design 1, but aesthetically speaking, these match up pretty good. It's a little bit more orange than the default brass, but and honestly, you could change the brass color on these if you want. Personally, I just leave it default. So we've got our forward battery here. Next up, we are going to be adding in our side batteries, which unfortunately you can't place any more of these because you can't separate them into different groups. Like, you couldn't have group 1 being 4 of the forward-facing ones and group 2 being 4 of the side-facing ones. All weapons are grouped with the same weapon. So unfortunately, we're going to have to look for something else. Now, you could use these if you want, these auto alphas from Horizon Defense. However, color scheme fucks with me, not into that. So I'm actually going to be dropping down to a tier B1, these PBO auto neutrons. Now note, the DPS is still fantastic. In fact, it might actually be better. It might actually be better than those Type C Horizon Defenses. Yeah, because these are 20 damage per shot at a fire rate of 4. I thought they were actually... Yeah, and these are 21 at a fire rate of 5. So yeah, actually it is. And they match the aesthetic well. So I like having 2 of these on either side, like that. And these will cover your sides, as well as they can shoot forward if you do a little tilt, because through testing I've found that these turrets typically have a firing cone of around like 80 degrees or so. So they can't do a full 90, they can't turn directly forwards, but almost. So if an enemy is, let's say, over here, the front turrets can all fire at it, no problem. And then these side turrets will also turn to fire at it as well. The reason I have the side turrets as well is I like it for keeping enemies suppressed. While my main batteries are dealing with stuff forward, especially in fights with multiple ships, they tend to fly straight at you and then go past. And when I'm dealing with a bunch of ships at once, I want to be able to focus on targets, but not have the ones I already damaged regen their shields. So these will offer some suppressing fire to keep hitting them so they don't get their shield regen up. Now, the last set of weapons, because again, these are max power of 3, these are max power of 3, so you only get 4 of each, are my personal favorites that are an amazing pickup in my opinion. I'm sorry if you hear yelling in the background. I have a parrot, and he's kind of a dick sometimes. It's these Vanguard Hellfires. These things are astonishingly strong. Like, these are stupid guns. They are only available if you join the Vanguard. So if you join the Vanguard in New Atlantis, you get access to a couple pretty good modules. They offer a lot of guns that are pretty high tier. And then they also offer a Class B shield generator that gives 1,400 shield points. The only better one I have ever found is this Class C one that requires Starship Design rank 4. So, again, to put that in perspective for you guys, the other shields at that tier, like, there is nothing that I have found that even compares. Like, 690 is the highest one I see right now for Class B. There's the Vanguard one. Oh, there is a 1,500 one here that unlocked that requires rank 4. This does not require any Starship Design. This is no Starship Design. Just, you got a Class B ship, and you got 40 grand. You can get 1,450 shield HP, which is fantastic. And it's just that little dome. It goes right on top. So, that's fantastic. But these Hellfires have stupid stats. Like, look at this real quick. Okay, the range is short. You can shoot things beyond the range. They just have damage fall off. Fire rate of 7.5, which is higher than like almost every other gun you find. Usually it's 5 or 6 for some of the other like type A weapons. These are 7.5, and it does 19.8 hull damage per shot. And a max power of 2, which almost everything has a max power of 3, meaning you can have 6 of these. 6 of these cannons firing that fast, doing that much hull damage. So essentially, with this loadout, the second something drops shields in front of you, it just vaporizes. You get to just destroy it with a hail of machine gun fire, which is super fun. So now the guns are all on. So we're going to start assigning them. So on mouse 1, I want the autocannons, because that's just going to be left click. And then for everything else, I do it by the auto alphas on this one, and then the side ones on this, just so I know for power prioritization, because you're not going to be able to fully power all of these. You don't need to either. It's perfectly fine to have them at like half power or less. But that way I know, like, if I am really struggling for power, I can take power out of the side ones and focus all on the front guns. So now here we are. I am going to quickly cancel my mods just so that I can see the correct colors and make sure I had everything in the right spot. So, okay. Yeah, everything here looks good. We've got those poking out a little bit in front of the wings here. We've got the fins in the middle. Yeah, okay. So all of that, yeah, that all looked good. Okay, so then the only other change that happened here, it looks like, is I put the skegs on the bottom of the engine. So you've got the slope on top, the skeg on the bottom. that above there. But again, if you ever feel like you need more fuel, feel free to replace it with another one of these. Okay, and then that is a change I did with the spine design. I had the radiators in the front and back with the mount in the middle, which makes sense because I've only got one gun back here. I didn't need all that mounting space, and I do remember this, I didn't like having the radiator right next to that because it felt like this was just like the brass line and there was too much. I like the variation a bit more of like this one's in the middle, these ones are on the side. Okay, so then now we're left here. This is our full ship. And this is right at the build limit, which is why I'm missing that one there. Because if I put it back and then I try to add anything, module limit. 130 objects is your max limit, and that's where we are at with this build. Otherwise, I would try doing some other stuff, maybe another set of wings under here, maybe bringing this forward like that, and then having an extra radiator in there. I don't know. Possibilities. But at this point, you know, we're maxed out on the length at 40 meters, we're maxed out on modules, and the ship stats are straight Gucci across the line. Grav drive can be upgraded, and then, you know, I just got this reactor like right before I started recording, so things keep dropping at higher levels. Maybe I'll find a even better reactor later, but it looks like the max possible reactor is 38. And then also I could get, you know, some more points in the fusion reactor skill that makes it so you have extra power. But this is our full build. The final thing with any build is painting it. So you can go one by one if you're psychotic, but fun fact, if you double click anything, it just selects the whole ship. And then you can hit J to color it. Now I'm not going to do that here because I did slight variations on certain objects, and I'm going to show you those, so if you want to copy the colors exactly, you'll know exactly where to go for that. So for all the hull parts, you have color 1 right here. I wanted a steel color, so I went with blue. Very, very light saturation and a very low darkness here. So feel free to copy that onto yours, and you feel free to select the entire ship for that, because that's what I just wanted the steel color to be, and that is every object's. It's perfectly fine to paint every object with that steel color. Color 2 is the orange, and I did those for both color 2 and 3 on all the fins, because I forget which is which, but one affects these top markings here, like these pipes and these little squares, and then the other one is the sides here, and I liked that visual flare of the orange, even though it doesn't match the brass exactly. If I did try to match the brass, it would be super pale, and I didn't like that. I wanted the saturated orange. So this is the color for this. I feel, yep, it's the exact same on color 2 and 3. So orange beam, max saturation, right there, a little bit above the 4th color bar, slight to the right. So that's how I colored those. You want to avoid color, if you want to select specific objects and you don't want to fuck with others, because for instance, like with these, if you fuck with color 3, you're fucking with the brass. So like, you don't really want that. You can mess with the brass color if you want, but you're gonna have to do it differently, because metallics and mattes are different colors, and you are going to have to find a different color value for that. So if you do want to just color all the fins, what I did is this. You just click, you hold Control, and then you click, 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 and you can select multiple objects that way. So for instance, I went around and I grabbed every fin and I painted those all at once, and then I painted the hull here, same thing. Number 2 is the orange color that I used on the wings, and then number 3 here, I think I just left as default. That's what those are. I liked having them as just the default black. I thought that looked fine. And you can hit X to default. It will only default the color you have selected. It will leave the others intact. As for everything else, the only thing that had a different color, because again, everything is just that steel and that orange, is the HABs, because the HABs have weird colors. Normal steel for the main one, normal orange for that one. But for color 3, I had to go much, much brighter, because if you look here, if I select this, which is where it was for the other ones, it's really, really dark on these top ones, and I thought it looked just a little weird. You know, like, I thought it didn't really match, so I had to brighten that up. I don't know what that material is. It appears to be some sort of, you know, that space age cloth material where it's a grid. I guess it's a fabric and thus has a different color than the plating. So you do have to customize that one, and I just made it a lot brighter in order to kind of match everything else. But yeah, finishing off, this is what you're left with. And I mean, personally, this is the favorite ship I have ever made. So I'm going to cancel that. Actually, I'm not going to cancel that because there's one thing I had to do.
Of course.
Did I remove that fin? I did. Let me just stick that back on. Perfect. Note, every single time you go in the shipbuilder and add anything, even if you don't touch the HABs, it will move everything in the HAB into the cargo. If you ever are wondering, why is my ship all filled with garbage in the cargo? It's because of that.
If you can't afford
this is just a ship. This is just a tip for shipbuilding. Go to your manufacturer of aesthetic choice. Look at their ships that they're selling. They usually suck because they have trash components. But they give you nice visual inspiration, so you can kind of see how the bits are used and what kind of shapes you can pull off. So like this one is a nice example of how they know these cargo containers match the brass on here, so you should use them together. This one is a backloader, so you know that gives you an idea. I don't have to have my loading at the front. I can have it at the back, and then my ship will just land backwards, facing wherever I want to go, because they do land oriented by this, not by the actual ship. So they aim that facing wherever the output of a landing area is. So if you land at New Atlantis, your ship will be facing backwards, and you'll walk down the ramp and be facing the ship tech. Celestial, this is a lot smaller craft. And then you go up to stuff like this, and now you really start saying, like, oh, these are the kind of shapes I can use. Look, I can use these Nova bracings that work really well with these kind of grids back here. I didn't even think about that. Or you can see things that you notice you don't like. Like, I love sidelanders. I hate that there's so much of them unattached, and that it's just kind of hooked onto the bottom there. So I'll make sure to look out for that when I'm building. I like the fins. I like having portholes. I don't like having the wings just ending though, but I like what they've done here where they've got a grav drive getting transitioned into a slope. That's a great idea. I should implement that in a build. So this is what I'm talking about, of looking at ships and then you get visual inspiration for that manufacturer. Like here, this is the thing I did on my Class B ship where I had a fin leading into the landing gear and then another fin. I don't like how small these ones are, but it makes sense because they've got the back thrusters there. But you look at something like this, and it's like, this is full of amazing ideas for shipbuilding aesthetically. That's gross. I don't know why they sell that. This is an amazing Deimos ship. Hey dude, if you like it, but that color scheme kills me.
Sorry to see you go.
So the last step here is I am just going to give you guys a quick tour of the ship so you can see what it's like. We're going to be entering through the docking port, unfortunately, because this is a station. So normally you'd be entering through the landing bay. So I'm going to head down there. Also remember, you don't have to use ladders. We have jetpacks. Use your jetpack. So, engineering bay. This is the Type B variant, which I was talking about. You know, a bit cleaner. You got like actual workstations. It feels like you should be in here rather than the other one, which feels like it should be cordoned off. Enter through the docking bay. You have this long strip here. On your right, you have the Deimos workshop, which, much like Stroud, are, in my opinion, the best ones because they have research terminals. However, it doesn't matter if you have an infirmary or science lab since they also have that. you know, industrial workbench, weapons workbench, spacesuit, and research. You go down the other one, you have the armory. This is the one flaw in this ship, and again, a source of my hatred for the doors. There's an infirmary directly behind this. They don't put a door here. I don't know why. I could spread this out more if I wanted to with more of those HABs, the bridge HABs, but then I would have to compromise on other bits because I'm at the module limit, so I just said, it's fine. It's fine. So, display room. Currently there's nothing displayed because, as I mentioned, whenever you edit anything, everything gets pushed into cargo. So everything that was in this crate, now in the cargo hold. Everything that was displayed here, in the cargo hold. Pretty annoying. Wish it didn't happen, but just so you guys know, if you see stuff disappearing, as I saw someone posting, they were like, oh my god, I put stuff in the armory and then it disappeared. What a big bug. And it's like, it was just in the dude's cargo hold. He just didn't check. Down this hall, you've got the infirmary, you've got a research lab, and you've got pharmaceutical crafting. So between that, the workshop, and the living quarters, you have all the crafting you need. This is the exact same as the science lab. I went with the infirmary because for me it made sense for roleplay that a bounty hunting ship should have a med bay. And then over in this hallway, again, this one connects with the door. That one just doesn't, don't know why. But the workshop connecting directly to my bedroom. The bedrooms are great because not only do they have a bed that will give you your lovely XP bonus and sleeping bonus, but you have a storage box here, a storage box there, and a storage safe right there. And a locker, but you can't actually store stuff. You would have to actually like physically drop an item, move it, and put it in. Followed by a toilet as well. I will say, as much as I love Deimos and Stroud's aesthetic, they have the least comfortable looking beds I have ever seen. Like that is a less than 2-inch mattress. That is a bad mattress pad at best. Horrible looking. I have no idea why. You look at the hopetech or the Nova stuff, that is the coziest looking little bed nook in the world. It's crazy. Alright, so that's central. So this is the central hallway. Engineering, armory, or workshop and bedroom, infirmary and workshop. Second floor, again, this one's just for fun. You got the brig over here that I pray will be functional one day. I want to do live capture so bad for bounty hunting, but you know, you have computer controls here to unlock these. It's pretty cool looking in here. I like it. And then you have the 2x2 living quarters over here as a hangout zone. You got this cute little tree, couch. It's just pleasant in here. It's just nice. And then finally, up here, you have the bridge. The docking port, so it's really easy to do boarding stuff. You walk in here, you know, command area. If you're wondering where the storage is, captain's locker here, cargo hold here. I never use it though, I just hit my inventory. And then you have the actual piloting seat. So I can show you now what it looks like from the cockpit and also flying around. So this is why I put turrets here and not fixed guns, because I had fixed guns in the past. Fixed guns don't actually move. They sit completely still. So if you're shooting straight, it looks fine. You're shooting over here, and then the guns are oriented like this, and they're just coming out at like a 45-degree angle, and that just looked weird to me. So I tucked the fixed guns behind me where I can't see them, but I can still, you know, use them. And then the turrets, they do track. They will swivel and fire, and I just think it's, you know, really cool to have these big old turrets here firing at things, because it makes me feel like I'm flying a battleship, and that was the whole point of this build. And then also, the last thing I'm going to do is I just want to show you these autocannons. That's lovely. That's battleship as fuck. So yeah, that is my Deimos battleship build. I hope you all enjoy it, and I hope that you can, you know, if you want this ship, go for it. Recreate it. Enjoy having this slick looking battleship, but also get out there and build your own stuff. Like, that's why I made this guide and I photographed everything that I did and put all this information in, because I want people to have as much fun with the shipbuilder as I have, because I've had a great time. And there are some cool fights you can do. There's the normal bounty hunting stuff, you know, where you'll fight 1, 2, or 3 ships. There are bigger fights. Like, if you want to see an end game fight, try going to Crix. Try flying to the Key. Even this ship, like, I'm still putting points into my skills because this fight still kicks my ass, but I've gotten pretty close. There are so many ships and turret platforms here. It is a actual fleet, but this ship, with proper management and skills and targeting things and quickly dispatching like one enemy at a time so that you're just removing sources of damage, like, I've gotten close, but I still can't crack it. There are so many here. So actually, fuck it. Taking points out of engines because who needs them? Making sure my shields are maxed, making sure that's all maxed. Engines can be useful, but the only real thing they do is that is boosting, because boosting breaks target lock.
We're here. Hot off the yellow side. Target's grand function online.
Yeah, you can see how quickly the DPS goes up. This is one of my worst attempts, but also there are endgame fights you can do with huge fleets, and I don't have nearly enough points into my actual skills right now. So once I have, and actually I can put in more points right now, probably more shields, but yeah, like, max out particle beams, max out auto weapons, huge DPS increase, max out shields for more shields, max out targeting control, max out ballistics. Like, it's possible, but unlike ground combat, these are 100% a stat check. That guy's boosting, which is why I lost target lock on him, but it's fine. Oh my god. Whoops. But yeah, no, you can do some cool stuff with this. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed. Build some cool boats. Post them on the Starfield ships Reddit. I want to see your stuff. Alright, bye everyone.